Thank you. And Julia did a great job, so congratulations to her. As was just announced, my name is Michael Donahue from Pentaho. Let's see if this works. There we go. All right. So we're going to be talking about basically preparing your data for AI, and I'll be using some of the recent discussions we've had with the Fortune 500 CIOs, CDOs, CDAIOs, and a few other letter acronyms. So why should you listen to what I'm saying? I like to have this slide so you understand why I'm here. So Pentaho has been in the data intelligence industry for 18 years, okay? So we started out as open source and grew from there. About 9 years ago, we were acquired by Hitachi, a conglomerate based out of Japan with over 110 years of experience. We're currently sitting in 74 of the Fortune 100 companies out there, 44 of the 50 largest banks of the world, and we're a well-kept secret. We have over 120 patents just around data integration, data movement, data transformation. So we know what we're doing when it comes to data, which is pretty good. It's the whole point of us all being here today. So, all right, so here's some fun. I asked ChatGPT to create an image of a happy person attending this event. And I think it did a pretty good job. Look at that. Hey, it's amazing. Until it meets bad data. So we get that garbage in, garbage out type situation. So also for this presentation, I asked it to create a 110-100 rule for data quality. Okay, and I'm sure everybody can see that everything's misspelled, it doesn't really look right, and it's just way off. So once again, it's great until it's not. So it always trust as much as you can prove with AI. So here's what we have learned, okay? So we recently had a roundtable of 30 companies in the Fortune 500. I can't name names, I'm sorry. However, they were in insurance, financial services, and 2 media companies as well, 2 large media companies. So the whole point of the roundtable discussion was, what are the complications? So day one was, what were the complications you're having with artificial intelligence, adopting it, using it, and getting a good ROI from it? And the second day was, how are you successful? Well, I just want to tell you that the interesting part about this whole thing is, at no point did we ever get to the talking about the AI components. Nothing, the word algorithm never came up. It was all around basically data quality, data governance, and just having control of their data. So we basically took that time to start going through it, and what we found out was pretty shocking, okay? Everybody felt that they could classify their data perfectly. Nobody has problems dealing with PII information or PHI information. Hey, that's great, right? We're all comfortable that our insurance companies and banks are protecting us. However, that doesn't, and might I just say that the day actually started out with everybody saying they have perfect data. So if anybody says they have perfect data, I can tell you that's just not ever going to be true. So when we started digging into the details, okay, and this is why everything is all over the place, these answers. It's because nobody fully understands where their data truly is at any given time. So data quality. Everyone felt they had problems with data quality, okay? That was guaranteed. No one's doing it well, no one's doing it right. Quality is a big issue. Which also leads into regulatory. The banks felt that they were stronger in the regulatory space, but everyone else felt like they were just too far from it. They weren't hitting a clean regulatory response. Micro-segmentation was another issue. So they started out trying to use micro-segmentation of their data and wound up falling short. So as you can see, the claim to fame for financial services was 20% of the attendees. only 10% of insurance, and one of the two media companies. That also feeds into communication protocols. So no one was really doing that well. The three that, or the 10%, 0%, 10%, all felt that they were sort of doing it, which tells me that they have no way to properly notify their customers and anyone else if there's some sort of data issue. It's a manual intervention. So let's jump over to a data quality strategy, okay? So not many had a data quality strategy, and honestly, if you're looking at going for data perfection and realizing you're coming up short like everyone else in the world, a data quality strategy is your closest thing that you're gonna get to that data perfection, okay? I don't have to have perfect data, but at least I know that the data that is being used for an AI workload of any sort has quality data. So all the pieces of data are filled in. The data is coming from a clean space, golden source. What is the actual lineage of every single file that's being put into that space for an AI algorithm to touch and use? So that's at the end of the day, that's kind of what we decided we all had to strive for. Now, another interesting thing, I thought bias was going to come up quite heavily in the conversation, and it didn't. So that means that either they feel comfortable with where bias is, but the percentages don't show that. So bias never came up, so that tells me that they're not even thinking about bias. So this is confusing. I have data perfection. I'm amazing with classification of data. PII, PHI, no problem, but the rest of my data, I'm not so sure about. That's a conflict. So everybody has to realize that data quality, this is typically a build slide, so I apologize, I had to take the build out. But quality has an impact, okay? So the 110, 100 rule applies. Last I heard, this should be 10, 100, 1,000 rule. So for every single file, it's 10 euros to maintain it, 100 euros to remediate it, which then feeds back into prevention at that point. So you may go through a tough point at the beginning of the life cycle. However, you're back to maintaining, so you can keep your costs low. Cost of failure, well, that's just dramatic. When you think about that, when you have, say, 40,000 or over 1 million files, think about the cost. Now, a lot of things help that along. Incomplete data, inaccurate data, the outliers, which is the scariest part of it. Duplication, that's a little easier to fix. And of course, we get into bias. So bias has multiple different areas. I like to say it's a tangled web of different things. So confirmation, interaction, representation, observer bias, which is one that I think everybody probably is impacted by because we're all human. Aggregation, just general data bias, historical bias, measurement, label, and algorithmic. All of these come together and impact how successful your AI is. Not just that, but it also impacts decision-making within general data. So this never came up in the conversation. That was the big question I had at the end was why? Why? And from what I got was, everybody kind of responded the same way. Hey, I'm having enough trouble keeping my data coming in and going to the right location. I'm worried about the type of data that's there, what's happening with it. I can't even think this far ahead yet. So it is something that developers are thinking about. It's something that the data governance team is not focused on right now. So there's ways to attack this, okay? We have tools, but our competitors have tools. There's lots of tools out there to solve these problems, all right? So a data catalog is kind of your first step. Understanding what data's out there, understanding what state the data's in, and then figuring out how to put some business rules around it. And this is where your data strategy comes into play. So obviously data lineage is important for any regulated industry. It goes right back to golden source. So metadata management, great benefits there, but data governance is another one. And so as you start to go down this path, this is probably your first tool that you really should be using. If you don't have one, you should get one. Regardless of who you prefer or who you use, a data catalog is very important. It helps enforce the quality of your data before you get into that data quality component. So next, we get into the benefits of data integration and essentially data quality tools. So data quality tools are there to basically tell you how your data is doing and offer you ways to remediate against it. Data integration is used to fix that data. So whether that's enriching the data or just controlling the processes that are happening, as well as my favorite, which is the data cleansing and validation. Do I really need to have 13 copies of a single file? Do I really need to have slight variations? Which one is right, which one is wrong? The moment I present 5 different stories to an AI, I've now confused it. And we basically open ourselves up to risk at that point. And then, of course, data enrichment will help you fill in those gaps. So when you start to look at this, when you start to fix these problems, you'll start to understand that you have some really positive outcomes. So obviously the improved accuracy, but that's also improved decision making, and you get greater efficiencies from your data. Okay, and we're not even talking cost, because by creating that cleaner data lake or data lake house, your costs are going to go down significantly as well. You won't have to store as much. Processing time, retraining, all will go down. You also can help eliminate or reduce, we'll say reduce, your data drift within your models. Okay, this will help you understand at what point do I have an issue with data drift. So, and then of course we get into the bias piece. So now we can start to tackle bias. Now we've fixed everything. Okay, it's great, we fixed it all. We can start to fix bias, we can start to look at bias, we can start to defend against bias within AI. But this kind of walks you through the basics of an AI, how to get clean data for artificial intelligence before you even get to the artificial intelligence piece. So if you have any questions, we're all here. I've got, okay, that's not the slide there it is. So I've got both Laura and Jerome in the room as well. They're in the back there if you have any questions. So feel free to stop by and talk to us if you have anything else to say.